coming
For the
up.
future, if white people are going to survive in the 21st and 22nd century, we're going to have to survive in worlds that are not white countries. By 2040, whites are going to be a minority in the United States. There are very similar things, different but similar things happening in Europe. If we're going to survive this new world that we're entering, we can't just be talking about abstract ideas like the Constitution. We have to have identity politics. We have to have a sense of ourselves.
But identity politics, people who are into that, look how dirty and nasty the Democratic Party is now because that's all they're about. They're not about America. Do you think doing this with white people may lead down the same road to destruction?
The fact is, if whites are going to survive, we might actually have to get a little tough. We might even have to get a little nasty.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cultural War. My name is Roland. Welcome to this very interesting installment here. Jesse is going to be discussing, actually debating Richard Spencer, very interesting young dude, talking about white preservation. You know, white people are seriously under attack by the blacks and other races. For me, I think sometimes it's out of jealousy because whether we like it or not, if you go back in history, the white people have contributed to the progress of the world. And mostly, I'm not saying that the blacks and other races are not contributing, but whether we like it or not, somebody has to be ahead. And the way it seems, white people are ahead. I'm not saying, I know we're catching up as blacks and other races are catching up, but these guys, we have to give them the credit. This interview is very interesting, and I want you to listen to it. I don't want to give any further spoiler alerts, and I want you, if you've not subscribed to this channel, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. Without further ado, let's get straight into it.
You know, there's a lot of talk about the alt-right. The alt-right. Some people love them, and some people hate them, and some don't understand who they are and what they represent. I have with me, Skyping, Richard B. Spencer, the co-editor of altright.com and president of the National Policy Institute. And I wanted to talk to Richard. I wanted to speak to him for a while. I want to talk to him about the alt-right, and I'm Skyping with him. Richard, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on. I've been a fan of yours for a number of years, so it's a real honor to be on your show.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I wanted to talk to you about the alt-right. First, tell us exactly what it is. What does it stand for, and why now?
Well, I first started using the term alternative right or alt-right back in 2008. And at that point, the alt-right was almost more of a negative term. It was defining what we were not more than it was defining what we were. And what we were not was mainstream conservatism, and we were not George W. Bush conservatism. I was very opposed to George W. Bush's wars. I didn't take much of an interest in all of his policies, to be honest. We wanted a new path and a new way forward, and the alt-right was a big tent. If you look at my own personal and professional evolution, it was towards what I would call identitarianism. And that's another term that's thrown out there that's a mouthful. But it's about, you could think of it in terms of identity politics done right, where identity, that is, who are you? Are you part of a bigger family? Are you part of a bigger culture, or part of a bigger civilization, ultimately part of a bigger race? That this identity is at the heart of how you think about the world, how you think about society, how you think about politics. So the alt-right evolved, much like I did, evolved into an identity politics. So I would say that right now, the alt-right, it has lots of different faces. Some of those faces are people on Twitter who are take no prisoners type guys, trolls, that kind of thing, or on 8chan and so on. But the alt-right also comprises a number of thinkers and writers and leaders who are pursuing identity politics done right, done for white people in the United States and really around the world. So this is very different than a conservatism that has its basis in, say, free market economics or libertarianism or foreign policy or so on. Our basis, our starting point is identity. Their starting point are abstract ideas. Our starting point is, who are we?
And when you say who are we, the white people? Is it for whites only?
Well, it's about white identity. So, could there be someone who is non-white whom we, correspond with, or who writes things that we agree with or resonate with? Of course. But the alt-right really has to be about our identity. There has to be some ideological movement that is about us. Every other people, every other race has an identity politics, and they have their own kind of alt-right, so to speak. They have their own ideological identitarianism. This is for white people. It's only white people who refuse to affirm themselves. And they jump onto abstract terms like we believe in the Constitution or we believe in liberty. The liberty and the Constitution are all fine and good, but those things melt away like snow in the springtime in the face of identity, in the face of who are we as a race, as a people, in terms of our history, in terms of our culture and so much else.
And so just for me, when you say identity politics, you mean like the blacks have their things, the Hispanic have theirs, the women, and those. And so, but that has not been good for them. It is not working out very well for them.
I'm not so sure that it's really been bad for them. I think identity politics is a very natural thing. In a way, all politics is identity politics. All politics is a culture war. In terms of a lot of the things that you talk about in your show, about rebuilding the family, about self-reliance and integrity and so on, those are things that really resonate in the hearts of white people. And that kind of politics really is a kind of white identity politics that is implicit or that is not self-conscious or not spoken. And I for the future, if white people are going to survive in the 21st and 22nd century, we're going to have to survive in worlds that are not white countries. By 2040, whites are going to be a minority in the United States. There are very similar things, different but similar things happening in Europe. If we're going to survive this new world that we're entering, we can't just be talking about abstract ideas like the Constitution. We have to have identity politics. We have to have a sense of ourselves.
Well, but I don't like the fact that we have identity politics in America, because America is America. And when you come up with this identity politics, you tend to divide. It's no longer one nation under God. And I've noticed that people who are into identity politics have been into it for the last however many years. The blacks, the Hispanics, the women, the gays, the whatever. They're all mean, dirty, nasty people. I don't like them. They're very selfish. They're not about America. They're about themselves. And so I don't know if this is a good idea. When I speak of rebuilding the family, I speak of judging people by character, not color, working hard, less government in your life. There's no such thing as racism. It doesn't exist. It's either right or wrong, good or evil. I'm talking about the American way. But identity politics, people who are into that, look how dirty and nasty the Democratic Party is now, because that's all they're about. They're not about America. Do you think doing this with white people may lead down the same road to destruction?
I agree with you that so much from what I see from, say, black identity politicians or race mongers or you can go down the line, feminism or the gay movement or so on, is malign. And I would also say that the things that you put forward are some of the most benign things that I can imagine, such as integrity and family and so on. but we can't unilaterally disarm ourselves in this world. The fact is, we actually, if whites are going to survive, we might actually have to get a little tough. We might even have to get a little nasty, because I ultimately care about my extended family, my people, more than I care about the United States of America, to be frank, more than I care about the Constitution, about all this kind of stuff. Even if the United States fails, we're still going to be white. The other thing that I would add in terms of the United States history is that we like to latch on to things like the Declaration of Independence and so on. But the assumption of the founding fathers was that the United States would not just be a white country, but it would be a predominantly Anglo-Saxon Protestant country. And they also had a very strong assumption of what, for lack of a better term, of white supremacy. That is that African Americans would never have the same rights as Anglo-Saxon Protestants living in the United States. That's simply an historical fact. Whether we think it's good or bad or a little bit of both, it's a fact. The United States, the kind of country that was created, that was a post-Enlightenment republic that had certain democratic elements but was Republican, this was designed as a not just racially, but even ethnically homogenous country. When John Jay talked about in one of the Federalist Papers, thank God that we are one people, he was not saying that we were all Americans, and he wasn't even saying that we were all white. He was actually saying, thank God we are one people, in the sense that Americans are English-speaking Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So even within a country that is more based on classical liberal ideas, there's still a racial core.
Richard, when I speak of identity politics, I think it's a bad thing, because I noticed that with the blacks, the Hispanics, the women's lib, those people, it's just been negative. It's so dark. It's so selfish. And I think that, I know that white Americans need to speak up. I know that, and I've been writing and speaking and saying for a long time, why is it that white folks are allowing themselves to be called racist, robbed, murdered, beat up, and just all kinds of things, and they were not fighting back in any form or fashion, and I didn't understand that. I think it's good that, there is an alt-right, but not as identity politics, because it's just going to divide the country even more so. White people should, I'm not saying disarm yourself, you should stand up. I personally think that if it wasn't for white Americans, there would be no America. I think this country is the greatest country in the world. I think that I see that that white Americans are very creative, they're very motivated, and everybody and their mama want to come here, but when they come, they destroy. They don't build. They don't add on to the country. So I think the movement should be about getting rid of the illegal aliens, putting a wall around the borders, getting rid of all those folks who are here and they don't like what we are about, what America is about, and just make America great again, but not necessarily go into the whiteness. Just do what's right and not what's white.
I really wish that the way forward that you described were possible. But the fact is, the United States is fragmenting. It's been fragmenting for a long time, actually. It's certainly been fragmenting throughout my lifetime. And I don't think that we can simply convince everyone to embrace the kinds of things that you talked about in your heart. I think that we are actually about to enter a very difficult historical stage. And that is so many of these American assumptions that we are all on the same page when it comes to things socially and culturally, that we can all get along, that this is all one nation, that we have our president, we have our culture, and so on. I think all of these things are being brought into question. The United States right now is shot through with race. And therefore, I think the left is often, they're secretly right, or there's a kernel of truth when they call things racist. So this is racist. This expresses white privilege and so on. They're actually getting at something when they say this, even though they're easy to make fun of, as you rightfully do often. They're getting at the fact that this is all of the assumptions of our society do derive from the white race at some level, for good and for ill. That when multiple races are brought together and they have different assumptions, they have different worldviews, they have different ways of living, that there is going to be conflict, that people are going to have that the meaning of words like freedom, the meaning of words like America, the meaning of words like the Constitution are going to have different meanings for different people. They're going to have different meanings depending on the perspective that you're looking at. That's just simply where we are. And I don't think we could ever return to some earlier stage of Americanism. The only way forward really is through. We're going to have to pass through this phase that America is in. But if we can come out the other side, then I actually think the white race will be stronger for this.
But will America be stronger, though? Will America be stronger? Because if all the races are divided, it's not going to make the country stronger. And I want America, the country that I was born into. Richard, let me just ask about being transracial. You said, I was told that you said you want to be transracial. Is that true? And I want to know what is that?
I'm sure I said that as a joke.
Oh, okay.
Just as a provocative way of getting people to rethink things. I think I stole that joke from a man named Sam Dixon, actually, and he said, and I'm sure I picked up on this, is that sometimes I wish that I could be transracial, in the sense of it's a lot easier to be an African American, because African Americans don't have any problem affirming themselves. If you ask a black man, who are you? He'll say, well, I'm a black man. If you ask a white person, who are you? They'll say, well, I'm a U.S. citizen who believes in liberty in the Constitution. Or
you're right.
I'm a liberal who believes for equality for all human beings. And I sometimes wish that I could be another race, because things would be so much easier to be an identitarian.